When my food truck sparked a showdown with the iron-fisted HOA president, I never expected a taco could challenge her authority and the heart of our community, which she finally embraced change. Hey there, Porch Patrol Squad. Let me know if you've ever locked horns with a Karen like in today's story. Smash that like button and spill the tea in the comments. And if you're craving more outrageous HOA battles, make sure to subscribe and ring that notification bell. Believe me, you don't want to miss how this unfolds. As Clara stood before the crowd, her newfound taco-induced enlightenment glowing in her cheeks, I could almost hear the gears turning in the minds of my neighbors. Was she really advocating for change? The whispers began circling like flocks of excited birds, each one vying to be the first to nest in the branches of Clara's unexpected taco approval. I exchanged nervous glances with Sam, who was trying his hardest not to burst out laughing at the ridiculousness of it all. It was as if the neighborhood's very own queen of conflict had taken a sabbatical from her kingdom of conformity to explore the wonders of the food truck revolution. Are we really going to allow an HOA president to take credit for our tacos? I thought with a smirk, imagining Clara in a chef's hat throwing a food truck parade in her tailored suit. Surely the world had gone mad, and I was here for it. When the dust settled, Clara clapped her hands, reaching deep into her authoritative bag of tricks. "Ladies and gentlemen," she announced, and somehow even her clipped tone carried an air of festive cheer. "I propose we draft a proposal for food trucks to integrate into our community events." I couldn't help but choke on a piece of cilantro. Did I just hear the words food trucks and community emit from Clara's tightly pursed lips? The onlookers began to cheer, rallying behind a plan that felt as compelling as winning a jackpot at a bingo night. It was a strange twist of fate, but it soon became apparent that the taco chaos had bestowed us the greatest gift of all, collective hope, along with a lengthy list of mouths that would need feeding. As Clara continued to extol the virtues of culinary diversity, with more flair than she had ever shown in her HOA meetings, I couldn't help but feel a warm glow of camaraderie among my fellow neighbors. People who had previously regarded each other with suspicion now began to chat openly, energized by a shared mission beyond our picket fences. Suddenly, my little food truck felt less like a battle station and more like a carnival ride that promised unforgettable twirls and thrills. "Sam, what if we host an event?" I blurted, my excitement bubbling over like a soda can after being shaken. "A food truck festival, where we can invite everyone to celebrate community spirit over tacos, pizza, and maybe even baklava." There was something undeniably thrilling about this notion that sent electric jolts through me. The enthusiasm around us was contagious, and I could feel ideas whirl through the crowd like sugar plums. Taco eating contests, cooking challenges, and live music to boot. Clara's previously stern demeanor had melted into that of a mild-mannered event planner, scribbling feverishly in her notebook, which was still adorned with moralistic HOA guidelines. It was beyond surreal, and the absurdity of it all made me giggle internally. Here we were, a motley crew transformed from community factions into taco crusaders, all under the watchful and, dare I say, appetizing eye of the latest triumphant ruler, Clara Whitley, Queen of the Food Fair. I felt my heart swell as I imagined how this festival could pull together not just culinary enthusiasts, but everyone who had ever grappled with her stringent dibs on decorum and suburban uniformity. As the proposal began to take shape, I raised an important point everyone seemed too excited to notice. So, what happens to the food trucks that don't properly register, or the ones that flaunt our quaint neighborhood with loud music and each variation of taco one can dream of? I chimed in, keeping my tone light but firm. The crowd paused, and I could see Clara's brows furrow again, but this time they were mixed with concern and not her usual disdain. "We will establish guidelines, but we can work together," she declared, excitement lacing her words, "to make this a fun, inclusive event while maintaining our neighborhood's charm." Funny how a single taco had flipped the script. It sent Clara losing her grip on her ironclad guidelines in favor of a stronger bind with people, and what's better than food to forge fires of friendship? As twilight settled in, the energy began to fuse into a raucous crescendo of excitement and planning galore. Neighbors were throwing around ideas for decorations, food pairings, and entertainment, each more outlandish than the last. "We can have face painting bouncy houses," one neighbor shouted, as I quietly imagined Clara in a onesie bouncing under the lights. I couldn't help but cackle as I mentally pictured her operating an enterprise of taco trucks, like a bemused queen, authorizing each vendor with a wave of her seasoned palm while promoting the days of neighborhood bliss. "Do you think Clara could pull off a taco costume?" "Maybe a luchador," Sam joked, and we both fell into a fit of laughter, imagining her enduring an inflatable taco suit while wielding a spatula like a knight's sword. As the sun dipped below the horizon, coloring the sky a brilliant mauve, I stood on the fringes of the crowd, truly awed by how a simple food truck could spark the kind of community revival that anyone would want on their resume. The town hall was gearing up for that fabled taco event, with Clara leading the charge, slowly evolving from taco tyrant to facilitator of fun, a title I never thought I would witness. So, there we were. The outrageous town bazaar turned into mild gastronomical glee, all thanks to a daring little food truck. What was next for Clara and the HOA, and would we really dare to use the words food truck and community in the same sentence ever again? As night fell, the banquet of ideas blossomed into a full-blown food fest bonanza. Sam and I pivoted into planning mode, overwhelmed but giddy at the thought of commandeering the upcoming taco festival. Neighborhood creativity flowed freely as we all gathered around my food truck, brainstorming with the fervor of children before a piñata party. Clara, now adorned in a floral blazer that seemed oddly out of character but delightful nonetheless, was handing out notepads like a benevolent empress. "I expect each of you to produce your own culinary interpretations. Grab the spirit of the taco," she proclaimed, her once wavering authority now buoyed by spiced enthusiasm. This was the transformation I never knew I needed, a whimsical rallying cry delivered by the woman who once squashed dreams under the weight of regulation. Within minutes, our tidy gathering had transformed into an uncontainable carnival of ideas. One neighbor excitedly proposed a taco Olympics, which would have teams competing to create the best taco, while racing in oversized hats and capes. Clara furrowed her brow in thought, and I half expected her to pull out her clipboard and dismiss it. But instead, she nodded, her mouth curling into a sly grin. "Why not? If it adds to the fun, let's encourage taco artistry in Olympic proportions. Keep me apprised of your progress." I stifled a laugh at the sheer absurdity of it all. Could it be true? The Hastings Estates was moving towards functional chaos with strobing lights of laughter rather than stern frowns. I glanced to Sam, whose cherubic face bore a smug expression as he skated through the crowd, collecting ludicrous sketches of taco-themed mascots, tangible evidence of our budding food festival's insanity. There was a giant taco that looked suspiciously like Clara herself. 2 disco ball piñatas stood proudly on either side, begging for a whack of whimsical joy. In the wrong hands, these designs could easily spell disaster, but for this moment, they represented a triumphant community victory that outweighed HOA regulations. "I should start charging for these," Sam said with a chuckle. "I bet Clara would be the first to buy a ticket." We spent hours in preparation, and soon days flew by in a blur of excitement. There were meetings that felt less like HOA drudgery and more like a slice of the carnival mobility. There were coffee runs, group chats filled with ridiculously exaggerated taco artwork, and spontaneous dance-offs. I reveled in the camaraderie flourishing beneath soft, twinkling lights that I had hung on the food truck. Each evening became a mini celebration of community, and even Clara's multi-part suggestions came with an air of play. She began sharing her own taco recipes, which was either a delightful turn or a borderline nightmare, depending on how dare I call her out of touch. Had the neighborhood ever been so alive? The night before the festival dawned, we held a pre-event gathering to rally one last bit of energy and excitement. Clara insisted on throwing a small potluck where everyone would practice cooking their creations. It was an odd menagerie of plaid shirts, doilies, and avocado margaritas, whirling together, knocking elbows amidst laughter. We had set up my food truck as the central hub, lined with festive decorations and the scent of sizzling onions in the air. "This is it! Our culinary soldiers! Ready to fight for taco glory!" I gestured pompously, and the crowd erupted in uproarious laughter, a laugh that echoed with the joyful relief of finally undermining the tyrannies of mundane suburban life. As dawn broke on festival day, I woke to a cacophony of sounds, laughter, sizzling, and improvisational mariachi music that could only be the collective efforts of neophyte musicians. I was practically vibrating in my boots with excitement, bouncing out of bed and pouring coffee into my reusable mug as if it were magic potion. Sam and I raced down the block to ensure my food truck was in prime position, all the while our minds flooded with memories of Clara frowning disapprovingly at us just weeks before. But now Clara stood with arms crossed and a grin wider than the taco truck itself. "Prepare yourselves for the best day we've ever had," she announced. And for the first time, I noticed genuine humanity masking under the persnickety exterior. The festival unfolded with highs that rivaled the happiest moments of my life. Dozens of neighbors approached my truck, eager to taste the fusion of flavors and to celebrate the community spirit that had flourished against all odds. Suddenly, the knowledge that I wasn't just fighting for my food truck, but for the ethos of collaboration and community settled into my heart like a warm hug. Clara dashed to my side, her enthusiasm contagious as she mingled with our neighbors. "Look at all this," she said, gesturing back to the merry chaos, a cacophony of laughter mixing with the sizzling of tortillas. "Can you believe it all started with tacos?" As the sun dipped once more, casting crimson hues above our heads, the spirit of unity was a palpable force, lifting us all as we continued to dance, eat, drink, and cheer for food, our greatest common denominator. This taco festival had rekindled friendships and healed old wounds, transforming moments of isolation into blissful connection. Clara, who had once been considered the parking lot cop of our neighborhood, now embodied the warmth of a shared kitchen, arms open wide as she made tortillas fly. Had we really turned the HOA president into the taco queen, all while holding steadfast to the very essence of community? The refrain of laughter mingled with the sounds of food sizzling, and I couldn't help but wonder what other delightful mischief might be pushed forth while burgeoning friendships flourished. The taco festival morning was nothing short of chaotic glee. As I whipped cream for the planned Taco Sunday, a culinary concept that had most neighbors raising a skeptical eyebrow, excitement buzzed in the air like the glittery confetti I decided was absolutely necessary for the event. Sam, in his usual state of delightful disarray, was busy arranging neon plates while charming our elderly neighbor, Mrs. Hargrove, into bringing her infamous guacamole, a dish that had won her FaceTime on the local news, if only for its green luminescence. "It's like a party in your mouth, dear. You have to taste it," she insisted, her tiny frame practically quivering with enthusiasm. I grinned and encouraged Sam to keep her engaged. Her mediocrity at juggling avocados was a small price to pay for a fan-favorite recipe. As neighbors began flowing into the park, a breathtaking sight unfurled before me. Families strolled in, the warmth of community being as vital as the sun breaking through the early morning clouds. Children raced to our food truck, arms flailing, eyes wide, fueled by the promise of ways to combine tacos with everything from chocolate to sprinkles. Clara, suddenly devoid of her intimidating poise, had turned into a gluten-free taco enthusiast, peppering individuals with complimentary toppings and playful teasing about their concoctions. "Sweetheart, I'm not sure that flavor profile is culinary approved, but good luck. You might just invent a new classic," she chirped, her grin nearly outshining the sun as she adjusted the pink chef's hat I had convinced her to wear. Who knew the iron fist of HOA could wield a spatula with such glee? It wasn't long before the frenzy grew. Mini taco competitions erupted across the park, and Clara took on the role of judge with the fervor of a game show host. She strutted through the rows of picnic tables adorned with colorful tablecloths, exclaiming, "Oh, darling, if you think throwing sprinkles on a taco is fusion, we must have a conversation later." Her gleeful onslaught of public critiques had the neighborhood in stitches, replacing their fear of HOA board meetings with wild laughter. I couldn't help but smile at the absurdity of it all. What once resembled a world governed by rules had slowly melted into a celebration of culinary creativity far bolder than anything I had ever anticipated. But as fate would have it, I spotted a towering figure through the thrumming crowd. The unmistakable red curls and a look of determination betrayed one person, Clara's nemesis and self-proclaimed taco purity protector, Mitchell Graham, HOA vice president and full-time food critic. He sauntered onto the scene with an expression that suggested he had just caught a whiff of something horrendous. Clad in his taco night outfit, a nod to his own absurdity, he held a clipboard in one hand and a taco in the other, as if weighing the fate of our burgeoning festivities. "Maya, is this a sanctioned event?" he blared over the laughter, sending crickets chirping in conversation to the sidelines. My heart sank, but only for a moment. I had just the answer for him. "Mitchell, darling," I shouted back, channeling my inner cheerleader and simultaneously cooking the most outrageous Monterey Jack jalapeno taco possible. "Why don't you put that clipboard down and join us for a little taco taste test? You might learn a thing or two about community spirit." The laughter carried my words like a soft breeze, and before he could conjure a rebuttal, I whisked over, hands a-flailing. Clara, sensing her adversary's impending doom, latched onto my plan, fluttering around him with a plate of Caribbean jerk chicken tacos, practically waving them in his face. "Mitchell, love, this is all about bringing people together. Surely you wouldn't reject that on a taco-dedicated day." Just like that, the tides began to shift as the ever-judging Mitchell squinted in suspicion, surveying the delicious offerings. Moments turned into an eternity as I plated our Offbeat Taco Championships audience favorites and trotted over, determined. He hesitated, contemplating his options and, perhaps, the possibility that a culinary journey might persuade his rigid palate. The crowd began chanting, "Taco the vote," in an almost rhythmic cheer, coaxing him closer to the food truck. I swear I could see the gears turning in his head. Was this his chance for redemption? The answer smacked him on the nose when Clara exclaimed, "You can't spell fun without an F, and we have to have fun." Just like that, Mitchell took a hesitant bite, the daring flair sparking fireworks not just in his mouth, but across his stern expression. The crowd held its breath. Would he gag, or would he take a triumphant turn? With that glorious culinary victory in front of him, the taco's mundane guise shattered under the sheer exuberance in the air. And as his eyes lit up, so did the atmosphere. Laughter erupted. Applause followed as he declared, "This is unlike anything I've ever tried." And just like that, the taco crusade together spread like wildfire, igniting the hearts of neighbors, transforming him from a strict bureaucratic visage to a taco champion before my very eyes. The sheer absurdity of it was delectable, embodied in taco form, as the two of us exchanged stares, a shared moment between an HOA enforcer turned taco lover. As the day faded into a laughter-drenched evening swathed in twinkling lights, I raised a margarita-soaked toast with my neighbors, reveling in our small-town triumph. Clara and I locked eyes and laughed. The woman who had once tried to unseat my food truck was now loose in the wild world of taco joy. "To spicy delights and community nights," I shouted, my heart swelling at the warm camaraderie we had brewed amidst sizzling meat and the aroma of triumph. Who knew that the saga had taken such a comical yet fulfilling turn? What more joyful absurdity waited around the corner with the promise of tomorrow? As I stood outside Hearty Helpings, feeling the warmth of the sun on my face and the scent of garlic and grilled vegetables wafting up from the truck, everything felt right. My heart swelled with pride, knowing that I was not just feeding neighbors, but also supporting a cause that had the approval of the governor himself. My mind drifted back to long nights spent preparing for the charity, armed with an abundance of hope and determination. Any doubts I had melted away as I started serving my first few customers, an elderly couple who smiled broadly as they munched on my signature veggie tacos. Then, without missing a beat, Clara Whitley appeared like a thunderstorm on a summer day, clipboard in hand and fury in her perfectly coiffed hair that caught the sunlight in a way that made her look more menacing than usual. "Excuse me." Clara's voice sliced through the sounds of sizzling veggies and cheerful banter like a hot knife through butter. "This can't be happening. You can't park this unwanted commerce here, ruining the aesthetic of our lovely community." I raised an eyebrow, casting a brief glance at the volunteers who danced around my food truck, each sporting colorful aprons and even brighter spirits as they served hungry patrons. A collective chuckle erupted behind me from my customers, adding fuel to the smoldering fire that was Clara's indignation. Her meticulously tailored suit, complete with a set of pearls that looked just as uptight as she was, glimmered ominously in the sun, giving her an authoritative presence that was almost comedic. "Have you lost your mind?" I thought to myself, managing to bite my tongue just long enough to throw out a polite, "Actually, this isn't unwanted at all. It's wanted. I'm serving grateful patrons like..." Before I could complete my sentence, Clara interrupted me with a dismissive wave of her hand, the clipboard shaking violently as though it was a magic wand ready to banish me to the bad place. "You're going to have to..." Her eyes widened, perhaps due to the realization that my food truck was indeed a registered charity endorsed by state officials. It was like dropping a bomb in front of a prim and proper lady who had just burned her scone. "This is an emergency situation," she huffed, her tone oscillating somewhere between thunder and a high-pitched honk. It seemed my casual Saturday morning had suddenly transformed into an absurd showdown, a battle between a charity food truck and an HOA president with delusions of grandeur. I couldn't help but chuckle internally. My life became a sitcom episode the moment she arrived. "Listen," I said, placing my hands on my hips and embodying my best fierce face. "Not only is this a charity supported by the state, but it's a genuine service to our community. Have you ever thought you might be the first person to benefit from a hot meal? Because I hear yours are overdue." The tension escalated in the air, sweeter than the aroma of the tacos simmering nearby. Clara's mouth opened and closed, much like a fish desperate for fresh air, as she grasped for words, perhaps trying to summon an army of neighborhood supporters to her invisible cause. With a determined glint in her eye and her pride on the line, it became apparent that Clara could hardly accept defeat in this unusual war of bureaucracy versus humanity. Then, in a moment of spontaneous genius, I gestured toward Sam, who was busy handing out meals with charm and a spark undeniable. "Sam, tell her why we do this." My loyal ally in this food truck venture flashed me a toothy grin, ready to leap into action as if I had just summoned the cavalry. "We're all about serving. Just look at the line. Aren't these tacos more inspiring than that dusty old rule book you tote around?" His cheeky banter turned the atmosphere lighter, and I could practically hear the laughter of the residents behind me bubbling up like a soda can shook too long. Clara's frown deepened, blending into a portrait of pure frustration, but the laughter was contagious. The crowd cheered, "Yes, we want tacos," as if we were suddenly in an episode of a game show. I could feel Clara's carefully maintained grip on authority slipping away. Just when I thought the tide might turn in my favor, the unthinkable happened. Clara's clipboard slipped from her fingers and went teetering into the muck beneath her designer shoes. Time stood still as our residents collectively gasped, and despite myself, I couldn't suppress an outright laugh. Clara, with her pristine pearls, had fallen victim to a moment of irony worthy of applause. Oh dear. Someone should really take better care of those rules, don't you think? I teased, eliciting a riotous round of cheers. Before any healing could begin, however, Clara regained her composure and squinted hard at my food truck, her brow knitting as if she were solving a particularly complex Sudoku. "You think this is funny? You think your little taco operation can challenge the decree of the HOA?" she bristled. Just as she was about to continue her monologue on proper aesthetics, I summoned my courage again, buoyed by the cheers at my back and the rising enthusiasm within me. "What's really funny, Clara, is how many people have come together because of this little taco operation. Now, let me help you clean that up. It might just save you from further embarrassment." This was the moment where I felt I could have handed over a full meal, no strings attached, to her pride. The air crackled with tension as Clara stood frozen, the incredulous look on her face seeming to vacillate between rage and disbelief. I stretched my arms wide, uniting the crowd with our shared laughter. Clara was about to find out that oppositional forces tend to ignite profound connections, and maybe just a drop of taco sauce could embolden a lasting change in our community dynamics. Did I just score a victory over HOA Karen? I dared to hope. In that moment, Clara's meticulously crafted facade began to crack, the pristine exterior of her tailored suit losing its veneer of authority. As laughter reverberated around us, I caught sight of her mouth forming an incredulous "how dare you" before the words managed to escape. The community that once viewed Clara with a mix of apprehension and respect now rallied behind the absurdity of her predicament. She was, in her own right, a caricature of entitlement, hard to take seriously when she was waist-deep in taco toppings and the last shreds of her dignity. My heart was racing. It felt like a strange twist of fate had placed me directly in the middle of a sitcom script, only this time I was the lead. "People are hungry for more than just food, Clara," I stated, unable to resist the urge to playfully lean closer like a gossiping neighbor spilling the tea. "They're hungry for community." Sam's laughter was the icing on the cake. He leaned against the side of the truck, unable to contain himself as he hooted, "You okay there, Clara? Or do you need a taco to clean that all up?" His jovial manner sharpened the atmosphere, wrapping it in a blanket of mirth. I could see the residents at the back nodding enthusiastically, their eyes bright with the thrill of this unexpected manifestation of power over the self-proclaimed queen of the HOA. As Clara glared daggers at Sam, it became all too obvious that my food truck wasn't merely an unwanted commercial venture in her eyes. It was now a beacon of rebellion. The people had spoken, and lo and behold, they wanted their tacos and their charity, thank you very much. Clara's furrowed brow twisted into a comical grimace, more suited to a farcical villain than a local authority figure. "This is a violation," she spat, as if those two words could magically transport her back to a time when she ruled with an iron fist, unchallenged and unbothered. I bit back a chuckle and decided to indulge her misplaced sense of authority just a little longer. "Really?" I feigned surprise, a grin playing on my lips. "And just which HOA rule was that again? Is it the one about not serving the community? Because I've checked every box, sweetheart." I felt buoyed by the gathered crowd's energy. They were wholly invested now. Then, just when it seemed Clara was about to launch into another rant that could last long enough to rival a public filibuster, it happened. Her frown deepened, and I watched as a light bulb flickered in her mind, one that could either drive her deeper into desperation or lead to some semblance of realization. It dawned on her that maybe, just maybe, she was in over her head. With the spirited chatter of newly supportive residents surrounding me, it became clear that my food truck had transformed into a harbinger of defiance, bringing people together in ways her meticulously crafted guidelines never could. As Claire blinked, words caught in her throat, I took a moment to revel in my small victory. For months, I'd endured her relentless attacks, pulling out rules like they were weapons in one of her HOA skirmishes, and discounting the very heart of what we were doing. But now I was practically glowing, fueled not just by the unexpected joy of seeing her rattled, but by the impulse to push a step further. "Tell you what, Clara," I said, stepping forward with the air of a triumphant champion. "How about you join us for a taco? It might be the best way to get a taste of real community." Clara's look screamed horror, as if I had unceremoniously suggested she wear one of my paint-splattered aprons. The crowd erupted into a chorus of half-hearted mock cheers and gasps, some chanting, "Taco for Clara." It was the kind of spontaneous silliness that made the morning feel electric. Clara, proud and indignant, was no more a figure imposing authority than a small dog barking at something far beyond its reach. Time seemed to dilate while her expression flitted between disbelief and a dawning comprehension that perhaps she had underestimated the appetites of both the community and my resolve. In that euphoric, absurd moment, I saw Clara's walls begin to crack. perhaps realizing she would never be able to erase me or my mission from our little world. It symbolized something bigger than just a charitable endeavor. We were challenging the confines of bureaucratic constraints that had for too long stifled human connection. For the first time since her arrival, Clara seemed vulnerable in a way that turned the tables. Maybe today she'd discover the power of tacos, laughter, and a united community working together. It was all about to unfold, and honestly, I could hardly wait to see what happened next. What would she do in the face of being offered a taco? The air buzzed with chaotic excitement as laughter intermingled with the sizzling of my food truck grill. Clara, with her normally ruthless aura momentarily weakened, stood before us like a moth caught in the glow of an enthusiastic light bulb, confounded and slightly singed. It was almost unbearable how delightfully absurd this moment was. The queen of the HOA, who had wielded her power against me like an oversized gavel, now faced the real possibility of being humiliated into a taco bite. Little did she know, as I offered her that tantalizing morsel of community spirit, the powers of fate were truly at play here. Clara's lips pressed tightly together in a line that suggested indignation was battling for supremacy, with curiosity about the dish I loved so dearly. As her eyes darted around, scanning the hopeful faces of our neighbors, it struck me that Clara's world of rigid rules and pristine lawns was crumbling under the weight of messy tacos and jubilant chaos. I took advantage of this thrilling turn of events, raising my eyebrows and gesturing like a carnival barker on a particularly lively day. Come on now, Clara. There's no ruling against a taco taste test, is there? What a lovely way to embrace the spirit of community. The crowd joined in, laughter punctuating my taunt like confetti thrown into the sky. Was there anything more ridiculous than witnessing an HOA president about to be deflated by the filled tortilla of destiny? Her hesitance fueled our collective mirth, lifting spirits that had once been shackled under her formidable presence. But Clara was nothing if not resilient. With a deep breath, she seemed to channel every phrase she had rehearsed for proper decorum, face still scrunched in horror at the thought of indulging in community fare. "This is ludicrous," she announced a tad too dramatically, as though she were auditioning for a soap opera rather than defending her non-existent authority over taco consumption. With that outburst, it occurred to me that her very existence was like overcooked pasta, stretched thin, lacking flavor, and bound for a messy finish if not handled properly. The assembly roared and clapped, immersing the sunny afternoon in encouragement, and I relished the moment, despite my better judgment whispering to me that I was maybe poking the bear too much. Then, out of the blue, a mysteriously calm voice broke through the raucous laughter. "Maybe a taco isn't so bad, Clara." Sam, uncharacteristically serious, rallied the crowd to ease Clara's tension, flashing her one of his trademark smiles. Their shared history as fellow homeowners suddenly seemed like the most potent weapon against her tyrannical regime of rules and regulations. The onlookers seemed to nod along, as if united in this comical standoff, drawn together by an unspoken desire to stand in absurdity's corner as we savored the sweet nectar of injustice served with spiced meat and guacamole. The sunlight warmed the atmosphere, wrapping around us like a cozy blanket, as laughter became the fighting force rallying against her fearsome decrees. Clara visibly hesitated, her well-defined brow twitching with indignation, tossed between a longing to maintain her iron presence and a quirky curiosity about the strange culinary phenomenon brewing before her. Choosing to dig in her heels was one option, but swallowing her pride along with a taco seemed almost equally volatile. "Such behavior, Maya," she finally retorted, her voice wavering, clearly not ready to succumb to arbitrary taco politics. This isn't how adults maintain professionalism. Her rigidity, highlighted by her tailored blazer wrinkling slightly under pressure, made it hard not to giggle. "Professionals get hungry too, Clara," I shot back, reveling in the camaraderie of my growing fan club. In that charged moment, the irresistible force of humorous rebellion met the immovable object of a taco-touting HOA queen. My excitement was palpable. The absurdity of our dramatic showdown was electrifying. With all eyes glued to Clara, she seemed like she was seconds away from either dismissing the entire fiasco or having a radical change of heart, reinforced by the booming laughter that rode the currents of the warm breeze. Whatever the outcome, I sensed her desire to cling to power was waning amid the chorus of laughter. Surely, there had to be a line drawn somewhere. Tacos would have won in this hypothetical battle, and I, the ever-relentless food truck owner, would have proven that good food was more influential than restrictive regulations. With a reluctant sigh, hoping to stave off her rapidly declining influence, Clara took a small step forward, her eyes narrowing in acceptance. "Fine, but just a tiny taste," she finally conceded, horror dancing across her face as she made her way to the front of the line. And then, like clockwork, the crowd erupted into cheers. Clara's battle against my food truck was poised for a wild turn of events that would redefine authority for all time to come. It was delectable chaos, the kind that inspires future legends of the HOA, a town divided, united once more for a taco. What would she think upon tasting it? And would it be enough to tip the scales of her heart towards generosity? The crowd buzzed with anticipation as Clara, the self-proclaimed queen of the HOA, prepared to taste the very rebellion she had tried so diligently to suppress. With her usual poise slipping a notch, she approached the makeshift taco stand, each step seeming like a knight alighting upon the battlefield of my food truck kingdom. My heart raced like a drum roll, announcing the main event. A small part of me wondered about the irony of an HOA president reducing her stature to the lady who didn't like tacos, by even considering this act of gastronomic defiance. It was a surreal moment, and I couldn't help but feel giddy at the underlying tension, the drama unfolding like a classic theater piece, where every actor was thrilled by their own lines and misgivings. As Clara made her way to the taco tray, I could see hints of panic in her eyes. After all, here was a woman who had wielded a set of meticulously crafted rules with the fierceness of a gladiator. Now, all I could think about was the irony of her silencing culinary delights, as I prepared to serve her a taste of what she deemed unwanted commerce. Sam, sensing the pivotal moment, whispered a quip superbly timed. "No pressure, Clara. Just think of it as one small taco for a woman, and one giant leap for neighborhood unity." The crowd erupted in laughter, momentarily giving her the footing to gain some semblance of bravery. The humorous twist of fate suggested that perhaps Clara had traded her rigid rulebook for a fork. Was she about to surrender to the power of a taco? With shaky fingers, she grabbed a taco, all eyes on her like she was an Olympic athlete preparing for her final dive. She inspected it with a look reserved for dangerous chemicals, hovering somewhere between curiosity and dread. The audience was rapt, and I felt as if I were witnessing a sublime miracle or an impending disaster. Would she crumble at the first bite, joining us in the joyous rebellion against stuffy HOA ideologies? Or would she recoil in horror, reaffirming her mission of culinary suppression? I casually adjusted the sleeves of my chef's jacket, as if preparing for whatever came next was part of a grand plan. It was comedy hour, and Clara, once the antagonist in my food truck fairy tale, had become the star of the show. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Clara raised the taco to her lips. There was a collective intake of breath, suspense filling even the air around us. She took a small bite, almost as if she were tasting poison, and her expression froze mid-chew. At first, she went rigid, which made her appear monumentally uncomfortable, so in character that it was laughably tragic. I swear, for a fraction of a second, I thought she might spontaneously combust from sheer ingratitude towards what she was eating, perhaps because it insulted her carefully curated vision of neighborhood aesthetics. And then, delightfully out of nowhere, her eyes widened. It began like a ripple. Her lips, previously pressed in a firm line, softened. The rigid brow that could have held a crane in place now slackened, and then she broke into an unexpected smile. Clara, the notorious Karen of the HOA, was having a taco moment. Gasps circulated through the crowd, overlapping the usual banter of gossiping neighbors, somewhere between shock and disbelief. "Wait, did Clara just smile?" A voice rang out from the back. As if coordinating to punctuate this unexpected twist, the crowd erupted into spontaneous laughter and cheers. It seemed she had finally succumbed to the age-old battle of identity, who needed aesthetic rules when pointed spicy flavors tickled your taste buds, right? After a moment of heavenly silence filled with chewing, Clara cleared her throat. Her traditionally clipped voice rendered a shade softer. "Well," she said, "this is surprisingly delicious." The spectators howled, embracing the unearthed humor found in someone's unexpected appreciation for a taco. "Stand by for this breaking news," Sam shouted as he feigned holding an imaginary microphone. Local HOA president discovers joy in food truck fare. The atmosphere shifted vibrantly. We were not mere neighbors contending with each other, but rather united in the delight of an absurd urban fairy tale we each had a role in. Anyone who ever had their HOA dues contested was likely on their feet high-fiving, singing praises directed toward my food truck, and yes, indeed, to tacos. But as the laughter settled and Clara unexpectedly underwent a delightful metamorphosis, the little mutterings of discontent began to germinate. A few of her longtime supporters began murmuring a query, CNN would pick up any day. Could it be true? Could we embrace change? Minor chaos sparked as Clara took slow, deliberate steps away from her reign of terror, and the whispers of the group grew into a clear declaration. In the midst of my victorious taco-soaked vision, I couldn't help but think about leveling up my mission statement. It seemed this might just be the moment that allows us to debunk the darkest hours of HOA history, a rebranding moment awaiting its due time for glory. Suddenly, the mood shifted again when Clara raised her hand as if declaring a ceasefire. "Perhaps it's time we revisit our neighborhood policies," she proclaimed, her expression now an odd mixture of self-awareness and determination. "What if we considered local businesses that want to provide for the community?" As her audience collectively kneeled at her feet, the thought of Clara leading the charge toward taco-friendly regulations sent ripples of hilarity through me. Could this really be it? The tipping point like an avocado smashed between two slices of bread, heralding in a joyous avocado toast era for all. As laughter and applause wrapped warmly around us, it felt undeniable that we had entered a legendary moment in our little nook of the suburb, one that bridged a before and after, made sweeter with each bite of taco fate. What would tomorrow bring for the food truck and its newfound royal endorsement? Thanks for tuning in. It really means a lot to us. If you're still fired up from this HOA showdown, check out our next jaw-dropping battle on the right. Or let YouTube surprise you with another wild ride on the left. Take your pick, and I'll see you in the next neighborhood drama.